In our previous screencast, we showed how Niels Bohr came up with the remarkable idea that when electrons move from an outer shell to the inner shell, they emit packets of light, if you will, packets of energy of wavelengths that may show up in the visible or the infrared or the ultraviolet spectrum. This was his big idea, and in this screencast, we'll show how strong the evidence is supporting this. The primary source of evidence is the hydrogen emission spectrum. We'll understand the hydrogen emission spectrum and see how the data unambiguously establishes that this concept of electron emission creating light is almost without question valid. We'll see how it supports both visible light, ultraviolet light, and infrared light for the hydrogen emission spectrum. This is screencast 5.7. Okay, imagine you have an electron in a hydrogen atom, and it's in the first shell. Fine. Perhaps you could call that the ground state. It moves up to the third shell, but that shouldn't create any light at all. It simply requires energy, so you could say it's absorbing energy from the surroundings. No light is let out. But when it cools down, when it moves to a lower shell, let's say the third to the second, you run your Balmer-Former calculation from 3 to 2, and you get red light predicted, 656 nanometers. Red light is observed at 656 nanometers. This theory also predicts that when you go from the fourth shell to the second shell, you should get green light at 486 nanometers, which you do. It predicts when you go from the fifth shell to the second shell, you should get teal light at 434 nanometers, and you do. Even the sixth one gives rise to one that's barely visible in the visible spectrum, and so there you have it. This ample evidence that this model is correct. Even deeper, though, if you can do the calculations ending in the first shell, it shows all the ultraviolet absorptions. If you see all the atomic emission, electronic emission that ends up in the third shell, it gives rise to infrared spectra, all consistent with observed phenomenon. This is a very solid theory. Our symbol for Niels Bohr is the target. This is Screencast 5.7.